All right. Talk about profitability. And then there's a B2B SaaS company which does 40 million revenue with just 3 members growth team. So the CEO shared a playbook which we had access to. So our idea was that if we have to study, why not study the best? So when we looked under the hood, their playbook boiled down to 10 key techniques. And at first glance, these steps might seem simple, but there's a lot under the hood. So in this episode, we are going to break down these 10 techniques from basic moves to advanced strategies. So if you want to scale fast with a small growth team, this episode has a playbook which you can deploy right away. All right, so the first technique is very smooth operations. So when you have a very small team, it's all about how much leverage that you have, and all the operational things give you leverage, and that's why you generate output which is asymmetric to your input. So a couple of ideas she pointed out. One was very tight scoring of ICP and target accounts so that you are not spraying and praying. You have limited resource, you are harnessing, you're targeting very hard on those very selected set of accounts. Second thing was a smooth routing of these accounts. When inbound comes, the accounts are properly routed to the right reps so that there's no confusion. And then because everything is automated, things are smooth. Extensive research, precise targeting. So even the ads that they're running, there's a lot of research which can be used, which can be done through a lot of OpenAI based research assistants. These were some of the interesting ideas she shared. And the central theme was that have as much as automation possible, use AI, and make sure that you have a very tight operation. So this is technique one.
Awesome. Another technique that we have spoken in depth in another episode. This is partnering with industry experts. Influencers can help you amplify, your brand, your voice to a larger community, to your ICPs, right? So you should collaborate with experts to enhance your reach. You can search for influencers in your industry easily on LinkedIn. And there are some certain websites as well where influencers are listed for each industry. So you could easily search influencers in your industry with the help of certain websites that we'll link in the show notes. But yeah, collaborate with influencers and to help amplify your reach, your brand, and let as many people possible know about you in your industry.
Yeah, so I think one of the other point, which is, and we do have an episode on influencers and how podcasts are being used. For B2B, since the industry has now saturated, at least the SaaS has saturated, a lot of competitors' trust is at all-time low. So in that case, influencers play a very important part. And because they have mind share and people trust them, that's a great channel to reach to your audience.
So talk about collaborating with influencers also brings up the other technique of collaborating with agencies. With a small team of 3, or if you have a small team, like there's only so much you can do with the bandwidth you have at your hand. So you need to kind of collaborate with other external partners. Over here, it's marketing agencies, since we're talking about marketing, to kind of virtually increase the size of your team. And also you need to think about what are the core competencies you would want your team to have internally, your marketing and growth team to have internally, and what are some things that can be handled externally. For example, developing and maintaining the website. This could be easily offloaded. Like, this is not something that, again, depends on your case, but like broadly speaking, for graphics and website maintenance and all, you could rely on a partner rather than a full-time person internally focusing on this. So besides that, besides website, there could be other things you could leverage experience and external agencies on, such as advertisements, like digital advertisements.
Yes, and just to add on to your point, Raveesh, there are also industry experts with whom you can commission, who can add as an add-on to your team. And those could be project-based engagements where they come, they help you set up the ad accounts, because they have the know-how of, say, setting up the entire Google ad campaign or the LinkedIn ad campaign. instead of training your team, you can have some expert who has worked in some of the top SaaS companies, say run their ads or something. You can commission them in your team for a limited engagement, get the know-how, make a playbook, and then your team can run and execute. So that also is like an not an agency per se, but some sort of an external expert that can help. The next thing that she spoke about was whenever you're creating content, think about audience first. Okay. So sometimes what happens is the feature of a product becomes the talking point. Everybody is passionate about the feature. But contrary to that, what often helps is ability to understand customer pain points and then basically creating content around solving that pain point instead of obsessing over what feature got shipped last week. Okay, so that's where, because your audience or maybe your customer base may not care about all the fancy features that you are shipping, but the problem that they are having is always going to have resonance. And those problems, and the next question comes is how do you find the problems? I think one of the best place to find those problems is basically the site like G2 will have a lot of people who are talking about some of their existing problems, or maybe on the LinkedIn comments, if you can somehow find out a way to collect those intel. So those can give you a list of problems that your audience is having. And then basically that becomes a source of truth for you to go ahead and create content instead of obsessing over that last feature that you ship.
Yeah, well, your marketing team could be small, but the overall company size could be larger than this, right? And that is what you can leverage. You can leverage your employee brand, right? And I mean, it's been said a lot of times that people buy from people. So if a person and not a company page is talking about a problem and a solution, it resonates a lot more with the person facing that problem. So yeah, you can leverage your employees. A lot of companies do that really well. You can check out Gong, and of course we are talking about Chili Piper, so they do that too. And how do they do that is like, every time they have to share something, feature launch, or anything, any important thing that needs some traction. So every team member will be empowered to share about this announcement, right? They will be given marketing collaterals, template copies, images that they can post. And yeah, kind of helps you amplify that. Okay, there are 10 people talking about this thing, then, it catapults into broader reach, and you get a lot more eyeballs than what you would have gotten from just posting from your LinkedIn page. So yeah, leverage your employee brand to share content about your company.
And just to give another example, there's a company called Lemlist. So they are in the email automation space. Some of their content are created thinking about audience first, and actually they don't have to do anything. Those content don't need to be specifically aligned with exactly what Lemlist does. For example, there's a problem where their users had a problem, which is if you have a company name, how can you find its domain? Okay, so there's no way to do it. So their team went ahead and created a small Excel Google Sheet script where you can actually put the name and then it creates it populates a domain calling the Clearbit API. Okay, it's a simple tool, but again, given that it was done, kept in the audience pain in mind, that post got an unbelievable amount of share likes, and everybody found it useful. Instead of talking about some random feature, it actually just solved the problem. And so they always publish a bunch of templates and like scraped a bunch of LinkedIn ads in one place. Okay, and so everything is so helpful, and it doesn't talk about lemlist feature. It's all about, okay, probably you are having that blank zone when creating your ad campaign, then here is a swipe file for you, and so on.
The broader theme is to understand your audience or your ICP's pain points and create valuable content on. Similarly, Hockey Stack is creating like some amazing content for marketing teams, like, what affects MQLs, what affects SQLs, how many touch points are needed for a good lead to generate, an opportunity that closes faster. So yeah, basically think about an objective that your audience is trying to meet in their jobs to be done, and how are you positioned to create content around making it easy to meet that objective.
Yeah, I think you guys have taken it, our interpret team has taken it to another level. You guys like literally create, you guys go and find companies and literally create what customers are saying about them. And then you guys like literally package that into well-built reports and you just give it away for free, right? I mean, and it doesn't need to be, the post doesn't need to be talking about Brett's latest feature launch. It's just take it free. So the next thing that she's spoken about was external contribution to the content. So the amount of digital real estate your team can cover is finite. It's your website, it's the LinkedIn posts, and maybe a webinar in the social media, or maybe an event. That's it. Okay. But you can actually get into use other digital real estates in your industry, which is owned by others, and collaborate with them and create the brand awareness using that channel as well. Okay. For example, if you are going and contributing to other content, other publishers, or maybe in your industry, say, for example, you're talking in a event, okay, or in talking in somebody else's webinar, you literally tap into their ecosystem. So that's another way of increasing your footprint. And when the team is small, these sort of activities give you a generous ROI compared to just thinking that how many blogs I can post in my digital estate, which is owned by me. So yeah, external contribution, having backlink towards your website, some call to action towards your website is always helps. If you see, for that matter, there's a company called Lavender. Their CEO was in every sales podcast possible. Okay. And he was actually tapping into all the possible sales professionals. But imagine if he had just stuck to his LinkedIn post, his limited website digital real estate. That penetration is not possible. And especially when you have small team, these are like leverages.
So another technique she mentioned was co-marketing. Co-marketing is where you collaborate with brands that have the same audience as you, or very similar, like very high overlap of audience that they are catering to. So in case of Chili Piper, it's, let's say, Gong, right? All of them are catering to a revenue ops audience. So you need to engage in co-marketing activities, like events and content, and do things together so that the same audience can be aware about both of you, as well as like you are able to tap into that brand's audience, and vice versa, like they are able to tap into yours, and both of you combined are able to address a bigger chunk of market in, like, let's say if revenue ops is the audience, then the bigger chunk of revenue ops leaders you can tap into if two brands combine their efforts together.
Customer engagement. So customer support and customer recognition is another way that she mentioned. Essentially, you have set of customers. If you make them feel special, they are going to go ahead and spread the good words. Okay? And right now we know that when trust is at all-time low, referral traffic has the highest conversion probability. So there are tactical ways in which you can create award, you can have kudos, and you can have other mechanism in which you make the customer champion. Now at Glow Radius, we do a bit of that where some of the industry experts, we bring them for a discussion. And then we make sure that the discussion is published in a very authoritative manner where they come across as like the authority. And for them to talk about Glow Radius is easy because they already have that content which has been published on our behalf. So making somebody champion or making somebody get recognized in an industry is a great way to spread the word about your product.
So I think Shaunak already covered this. You already covered this a bit, but when you mentioned this Lavender CEO being on every single podcast, so that's the next technique about as well. Like how can you amplify your voice by using existing marketing channels? So podcasts and newsletters, just like influencers or other brands that are addressing your audience. There are also other media houses that might be talking to or like creating content for your audience. So a lot of podcasts, right? So let's say if you're addressing like your ICP's product community, then there's Lenny's newsletter, there's lot of influence in the product world, and they have their own podcasts. Besides that, yeah, there are a lot of like these podcasts and newsletters which you could tap into and feature on and like make the community aware about your product. Besides that, you could also start your own. And I think that's a great investment because down the line, you cannot be paying like thousands of dollars to feature an ad or yourself on a podcast every single month.
The final technique. When you do so many things, what becomes very challenging is to understand which one is working and which one is not working. So it
Yeah.
ties back to the first level of automation. If you can automate the attribution, which channel is working, which channel is giving you the ROI, and so on, that's a great way to have a control over. Because again, you have finite amount of number of resources, right? So where you want to double down, triple down, where you want to shut down, is completely based on the result that you are seeing through different techniques. So if you have an automated way to get the data in one dashboard, that's sort of a command and control center for you. You can decide which one to. And this is where you can also take some help from. There are a lot of AI automation agencies which are using simple workflow automation tools like Make or Zapier to stitch your custom workflows and then give you a dashboard where you can take control over the investment and the ROIs. Also, there are a lot of places where I'm seeing now that when a lot of data comes, sometimes it becomes difficult and time consuming to go over the data. Say, for example, how many of you log into your Google Analytics dashboard every week? Okay, there's a lot of data, but it's just that you don't feel like looking into that data. So one of the technique that I'm seeing, and this is again ties to unifying metrics across teams, is that take that dump of data, give it to ChatGPT, or for that matter other LLMs, and just ask the 5-6 questions that matters to you. Okay, you don't have to worry about analyzing. Let the AI do it for you. It's like your assistant who will look through the Excel and who will look through all the data. All you need is like 5 minutes. Just ask the 5 questions, and then you get the result. Maybe ask it to create a small table or dashboard and paste it in your presentation for the CMO or CXO. So that way, unification and using smart technology like or Make and use OpenAI in places where you need to analyze the data gives you tremendous leverage, and you don't need 100 people team or 50 people or 40 people team. You can do it with a small team. And that was one of the other insight that we got from this post. We are going to share this post. I highly encourage you to go over that. There are a lot of nuances. So, and then maybe use some of this technology for your small team to create more impact.